Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Mindset Alchemy podcast. Today I have an incredible guest. It is such an awesome privilege to share with you Toni Lontis from Everyday Business. Now, Toni has such an impressive CV. I'm going to ask her to introduce herself so that I don't forget anything or mess it up, because I just love hearing what Toni has achieved, and especially about her book, Resilience. Toni, please share with our guests who you are, what brought you to this point, and your wonderful book, Resilience.
Thank you, Janine. It's absolutely lovely to be with you today and to be invited on your podcast. A wonderful privilege indeed. Hi, I'm Toni Lontis, the online broadcaster, and my story is a little different from lots of other people who are in broadcasting. So in 2019, I published a book called Resilience, Memoir of a Broken Little Girl Discovering a Woman of Strength and Beauty. And I published at a time when I'd been through an awful amount, and I'd got to a point in my healing and self-discovery journey where I'd started to talk to people about some of the things that I'd experienced in life, and the resounding comment was, you need to write a book, which I did. Prior to that, I'd had 35 years in nursing and had my own consulting company, zapping across Australia, prepping day surgeries and small hospitals to meet the national quality and safety standards in and assessing gap analysis, educative, get you prepared for your accreditation role. And so I stopped doing that and said to the universe, okay, in 2019, I'm going to do things and say yes to things that terrify me and see where that takes me. And the first of those was a request to narrate my book myself. So I thought this audiobook idea was fantastic, but a voice actress could do that. That wasn't for me. The producer kept saying, no, 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 you have to do it yourself. And I'm like, no, 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 I don't. Finally, she said, I'm going to help you do this. I'll be there to hold your hand. It's going to be okay, which she did. And it was a very cathartic, emotive process over, I think, 4 5 weeks of 2-day full sessions of recording, which was exhausting. At
I'm
the end of
sure.
that, she sat me down. It was very exhausting. There were moments that, so I'd written the book, but I'd never actually spoken it out aloud, which is a completely different space to be in, and I was unprepared for the reemergence of some of the emotions from the book. And there were times when the producer would just stop me and say, okay, time for a break. And I'd have a cry and a hug and get myself together, and off we'd go again. At the end of that, she sort of said to me, Toni, you really should be in radio or podcasting. Uh, there's something about your voice. I could listen to it all day. And I'm like, yeah, righto. Um, I didn't believe her, and I thought that that's not for me. I'm very shy, introverted, etc. But obviously, the universe had lots of other plans that I knew nothing about. And as that must have stuck in my mind, because I connected with some American media company owners and had some conversations about podcasting, and the final conversation was about streaming audio versus podcasting, and did I want my own show, and that was the birth of Radio Toni, and my first shows were audio streaming and out to a live audience. And it's grown from there to a broadcasting service that embodies co-hosted principles that are done with you and done for you, so that other business owners, particularly fempreneurs and female entrepreneurs that are really concerned about wanting to promote themselves, to appear on camera. I create a safe space in which they can do, and it's my job to share their wisdom and knowledge with the world in a safe environment. And in 2022, we're progressing with the next step, and that's launching Everyday Women's Network. So, Netflix for women, where it's women owned, women led, women supported, and absolutely about women and the things that women care about. So, that's my big plan. And behind that sits a bigger vision about empowering people to overcome their challenges and to live their best lives.
Wow, that is an incredible vision that is going to have ripples everywhere. Tony, it is just so wonderful to hear somebody being proactive in a balanced masculine and feminine energy, not taking the wounded masculine, the wounded feminine, but rather balancing it. That is so awesome. I'm really excited to hear more about that. What made you
Thank you.
decide? What made you decide that that's the way to go? Starting a women-led network.
So, I guess sitting behind when I originally discovered the love of the spoken word and telling people's stories and interviewing, that sort of led to that bigger desire to work with women in particular. Because, as you know, Janine, the world is still a little unbalanced concerning masculine and feminine energy. And for women in particular, we don't tend to always have the same opportunities. It's a
Wow.
tough world for women. And I saw that the top shows across traditional and non traditional media were by men, that media executives were predominantly men, that producers were oftentimes men, and I thought, this is not right. We need to rebalance this. So that was the start of the thought pattern that led, okay, I want to do something different. I want to provide a network where the content is female centric with a balance of masculine and for men who empower women as well. And with that, I want to be able to give back to the planet. So the subscription to the channel will be apportioned to the things close to my heart, like domestic violence, child trafficking, our climate, our planet, and that the profit sharing model I want to instill will enable women to have additional streams of income themselves, so that if they invest in the network in the first part, then I won't take the revenue that they generate themselves via their channel or their content. That is completely theirs. So we're like a collaborative network where I've got the foundation and the broadcasting and the basics, and then here you go, let me have your content. Do you want to do a channel of your own? And how you monetize that will be your additional revenue. And the way that I will keep going is by subscriptions, and that way people are invested in the success of the network, and I'm invested in their success, and we are creating abundance for everyone via the pillars of the network, which are inspire, empower, educate, and help. And it keeps getting bigger the more I talk about it. So, but that's the premise behind it, Janine.
Wow, that is amazing, Tony. I love the fact that it's rather expansive rather than it's focused and on expansion. I would just like to say at this point
Yeah.
for our listeners that masculine and feminine is in men as well as women. So the fact that Tony is focusing on women doesn't take anything away from men. It actually adds to them from a power base. Tony, it's so interesting that that is your vision, because the vision of my company is to help women, especially, own their own power. And I get a sense you are
Yes.
standing in your power by empowering them to be in their power. And that is just incredible. May seem off the point, and it's really not. Where has your nursing background fed this very expansive vision you have?
So I, through lots of elements, surprisingly enough. So by virtue of the fact that I was in a nursing profession, the alternative for me was actually psychology. So both are caring professions. So that's interwoven in me essentially, that caring and wanting people to be their best, and health is like that. We wanted people to be as healthy as they could. That's one of the bases of nursing.
Mm-hmm.
And that caring for others and wanting the best for others is part of nursing. It also, sort of strangely enough, you develop listening skills and interview skills as
Mm-hmm.
part of your nursing practice. So I was a perioperative nurse, so that's an operating room nurse. And a lot of the work that you do is around educating your patients on
Mm-hmm.
what's about to happen to them in surgery, making them feel safe, making them feel confident in their own decisions, and advocating on their behalf. So, lots of the elements of nursing and the skills that I learned, I'm actually still using, but just in a different area, and that is broadcasting.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm grateful for those foundations. The other thing is that it was in nursing where I met amazing female leaders that were forging the way for the women that were coming behind them in terms of empowerment, self expression, uh, discovering more about themselves. So the elements of that was started within nursing. I had amazing female leaders who encouraged me, supported me, and led me to start exploring the world as it was. And indeed, it was one of my favorite managers who started me going to yoga, wondering about meditation, and the spiritual aspects of life that have come to mean so much for me and were such a core in my healing in my 40s.
Wow.
So just through nursing, yeah.
So it actually had a huge impact. Your book, to change the topic, to switch over, your book,
Yes.
Resilience, that word resilience is powerful. Now, the long-time listeners of the Mindset Alchemy podcast know that for me, thinking,
Mm.
words, and feeling are a triangle. We throw emotion in as well because it's part of it, um, are so incredibly powerful. That word resilience has an energy and a strength behind it. Would you be open to sharing with our listeners what that word signifies for you in your journey?
Oh, thanks, Janine. It came to me in a roundabout way when I was writing the book, and I was out with a friend, and I said to her that I was struggling with a name for the book, and we talked about a few ideas that I'd had, that and try not to use words that had already someone had already written about. Little did I know that there are lots of books written about resilience, but not a lot of them from a memoir perspective. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
so we were walking along, and she suggested to me, she said, with all the things that you've been through in life uh, and managed to rise above, you're very resilient. And it stuck with me, and that led to being the book being called Resilience, and it for me it signals the ability to overcome monumental odds. And they started from a very young age when I was born with a congenital facial defect, and it progressed through bullying and all sorts of nasty life experiences, trauma and dysfunction, depression, anxiety, and that is resilience. It's that ability to get back up when you've been knocked down. Get back up when you've been knocked down. Get back up when you've been knocked down. And the other component of resilience for me is around hope. And that's part of why I wrote, is to give people some hope that there are things that happen in life, and lots of people have very bad experiences, but there's always hope.
Mm-hmm.
There's always hope. And there's always the ability to change the way you think about the things that happen to you, and only you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Janine can't do it for you. I
Mm-hmm.
can't do it for you, but you can do that yourself. That's part of resilience as well.
Beautiful. Yes, I would say that knowing how interesting children can be, that would have been a very interesting experience. For me, resilience is so much about flexibility. And Toni, the more I speak to you, the more I read your work on Instagram, listen to your work, flexibility is very much who you're about. With this
Mm.
flexibility, how do you see resilience and flexibility helping you move forward as you help others create that beautiful life they're looking to create and be the difference you choose?
Do you know, I think it comes back to the way you think about things and your mindset. So for me, flexibility is always finding the good side of the bad, always focusing on the hope versus the hopelessness. And
Mm,
I've been in those deep, dark, bad places. I know what it's like to sit in those thoughts. And correspondingly, I've had to learn flexibility because I was very fixed. Both, I'm a Taurus, and they're a very fixed sign. They like stability and
yes.
steadfastness. So for me, I actually had to learn to take a deep breath and be flexible and not be so tied to an absolute result, and to embrace the universe for the free flowing energy that it provides.
Mm,
Because if you start to think about things in a different way, you develop more flexibility. Oh my goodness, that door's closed. Okay, so that means the universe is preparing me for something else that is for the betterment of the world and the betterment of my life. And
mm,
it took a long time to do that, Janine. So it's kind of a hard fought, hard learnt thing for me to be flexible. And I get challenged on that all the time. Weekly, I still get those moments where I'm like, ah, that hasn't worked out. And you just got to go, okay, all right, big breaths.
yes.
And that, do you know, one of the things about flexibility, and one thing that I learnt in that place where I was recovering from that first breakdown, where things are black and dark and immobile, uh, one of my counselors taught me breath work,
Mm-hmm.
and that actually helps me maintain that flexibility today. Whenever I feel myself clench, tighten in that rigid, uh, non flowing reaction to whatever it's happening, I have to breathe. I have to go. And most of the time, I'll close my eyes and go in for 3, out for 4, bang, off you go again. And
Yes,
that's resilience, isn't it?
it really is.
But it sounds so simple, but
Oh,
it's not. It's not when you have a personality that likes assuredness and like sameness and steadfastness. It can be nerve wracking, but you can do it. obviously you can learn how to do it. Once you've learned that skill, it's yours for life.
Absolutely. May I share a visual I had, Toni, while you were speaking there about when you were
Yes,
breathing?
please.
I saw this bull sitting with his butt down, with a daisy in his mouth and a garland of flowers around his head, and little curly locks coming down over his forehead in the sun shining. It's so interesting, my
Oh,
friend.
that's beautiful.
It was just such an incredible visual. So thank you for bringing that forward for me. So interesting because breathing is one of the very first tools I teach my clients. To the point that one of my
Ah.
clients designed a sticker of me with the words, just breathe. And she sent it to me the other day.
I just it again it sounds so simple, but when you know
Oh,
the not only the energy behind it, but the science of what happens in your brain when
yes,
you just breathe. It
yes.
takes you out of primitive brain, puts you back in normal brain, and off you go. And it took me so long to learn that, Janine. But such a powerful tool, and I'm so glad that people use that as one of their.
Yes,
Because for me, it was a lifesaver. It
yes.
was an absolute lifesaver.
Literally, it has kept me out of jail many a time when I just visualize my hands going around somebody's throat to stop them breathing. Because energetically, we can do that. So it's.
Ah,
So, people, if you take nothing away from today, take the bull analogy and
definitely.
take breathing. Toni, what do you offer your clients to help them move forward? Because people, I'll be sharing it in the notes, an incredible offer Toni has for you to help you with your business and to move forward. If you would like to just share that with our wonderful audience.
Absolutely. Thank you, Janine. I actually have complimentary calls where you call me, we jump on a Zoom, and I get to find out about you, what's holding you back, how I might help, and decide together what we might accomplish moving forward. And there's no obligation around that. It may be right for you, it may be wrong for you, but it's that open communication. And I say this often when I get on those Zooms. There are no expectations from my perspective about what we do today. This is just a chat, me getting to know you, and particularly if you're in business, where you are in business and what it might take to move you forward, what you need, what I can help you with. And sometimes it's just about connecting you with the people who might help. And again, from my perspective, I can't speak highly enough of the people that work within mindset coaching, mindset mentoring, and help people shift the way you think. It is the most powerful thing to head you towards the life of your dreams, is changing the way that you think, changing your mindset, and working on the way that you look at life. So, in the notes, Janine will have a connection to my calendar, and you can jump on the connection, pick a time and a call or a Zoom that suits you, and we'll have a chat. Simple as that.
I think that's wonderful. And I'm really grateful that I did have that chat with you because it led to today. Toni, one of the things around depression, besides the heaviness, the darkness,
Mm,
there's just so much to it.
there
Would
is.
would you advise people seeking professional help?
Absolutely. So, a bit of my story, Janine, I probably had not only was I predisposed to family and genetic depression, I absolutely believe that it had its tentacles starting as I went into my teenage years. And by virtue of the fact that I went nursing and knew from a headspace what a diagnosis of a mental health condition was, I refused to get help. There were people around me. I remember a conversation with a GP who sat me down in her office, and she was a friend and a work colleague, and she said, Toni, I think that you have the signs of depression and I really want you to get some help. And I was about 20 at the time, and I refused to get that help or seek that help or do anything that she suggested because of the stigma around mental health 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So now I absolutely say, please talk to someone. If you've got an amazing medical GP or doctor, tell them how you're feeling, because there's tools and amazing people out there that help you, and you don't know what you don't know. And it wasn't until I was completely broken that I allowed myself to get the help that I deserved. And if you're listening today, you absolutely deserve help.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Absolutely,
Don't try and
yes.
do it on your own. Never try and do things on your own. And combined with the best of medical science, I actually recommend a combination of Western and Eastern, and
Mm-hmm.
any of the energy practices are incredibly helpful for depression. So I'm talking about Reiki, I'm talking about crystals, I'm talking about any of the energy modalities are very, very helpful, along with meditation, relaxation, etc., etc. But absolutely, Janine, you have to accept help, because I don't want another person to get to the place that I got to, where I was completely broken, both mentally and physically, and
Mm-hmm.
where my doctor sat me down and said, if you don't do this, this, and this, you will be dead before you're 50.
Yes.
So it's serious, and you don't have to be that serious to get help,
Mm-hmm.
and it's
Wow.
readily available.
People, you heard it from somebody who's experienced it, and Toni, having been through depression and help myself, I absolutely
Yes,
100% understand. I was very blessed that I allowed the help before getting to the point of being broken. And people, it
agreed,
has
agreed.
physical implications as well as energetic.
Definitely.
Now, Toni, I love the quote that you sent me. Would you like to share where it came from and how it came about, please?
Oh my goodness, which one did I send you?
About
Isn't
the
that
woman,
terrible?
no, the woman in
Oh,
the
yes,
arena
yes,
who
yes.
stands there bloodied and absolutely victorious in her abilities.
So the woman in the arena, or the man, we changed the wording to the woman
Yes,
in
I
the
saw
arena,
that.
but
I saw that.
the original quote was from Roosevelt, and it was about the man in the arena. And essentially, the quote talks about, if you're not out there doing and living your best life, then don't criticize the people who are,
Yes.
because it's hard out here, and you put everything into what you're doing, and unless you're doing the same, do not judge, do not criticize. Brene Brown has made that quote incredibly famous, and I feel inadequate in saying it because she says it so well, but it's all about doing and being and living your best life, and disregarding it and those people that throw stones and jibes and all the rest of it. And gosh, I've got my share that I could tell you some of the things that people have said to me, and I learnt early on that you need to allow those to leave, because often it's not about you, it's about the person that's projecting whatever it is
Mm-hmm.
from themselves onto you. So
Mm-hmm.
it's none of your business what other people think of you.
Yes, I
I
agree.
love that quote too. It's none of
It's
your business what other people think of you.
absolutely. Toni, the reason why I absolutely loved it is because that is something I really promote to my clients, releasing criticizing,
Mm.
condemning, complaining, and comparing, because those four C's can take us out. And when we do it ourselves and when we do it to other people, we are actually energetically attacking them and opening ourselves for attack. So, thank you so much for sharing that beautiful quote. And thank you for sharing today. Is there anything you would like to leave our audience with before we say goodbye?
Oh, Janine, number one, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It's an absolute privilege. And number two, don't let anything stand in your way of living the life of your dreams. And you're the only one that can help you create that. And
Yeah, yeah.
as Janine knows, it's all about your mindset. It's
Mm-hmm.
about how you think about how you think, and then action and changing the way that you think. And for me, Janine, that started with learning how to love myself
Yes.
first and foremost. And from there, everything else changes. And that was very hard to learn. I was very bad to myself and very derogatory in my mind, and I didn't realize how bad it was until it was started to point out people saying, why do you think that way? What is it
Yeah.
that causes you to think that way? And examining the thoughts that are going through your mind and reassess them and change them. Just that
Beautiful.
simple.
You know, it is so interesting. I have a course I'm busy launching called Thinking by Design,
Mm,
because literally that's
mm,
what it's about. People, go check out
definitely.
Toni's offers in the show notes. And Toni, it's been an absolute privilege to have you. And don't forget to read the quote in the notes. Thank you all for joining us and have a wonderful and incredible day. Bye bye.